A fox knows many things, but a hedgehog knows one important thing. It's one important thing. It's one important thing.
Welcome to the Morning Hedgehog podcast, where we explore the business ideas that shape your success. Here are your hosts, Ira Gardner and Glynns Thomas.
Taking what we just talked about in this slide, you can actually write it out. So traditionally, I write it out as what are all my different marketing campaigns by those different steps in the buyer's journey. So there's the awareness and creating leads section. What are the different marketing tactics you're going to use? How are you going to encourage them to become a lead? That could be, I'm going to promote on Facebook ads and I'm going to take them to a landing page where they can exchange their email address for some free information. Again, you can go through the current customer perception and desired customer perception, take that information and make sure that your marketing tactics are in fact addressing those. And what are your projected results and how are you going to track those results? This is another big key point for people who are putting together their marketing plans, is to think about what your projected results are and how you're going to track them at the planning stage. We had to do this in all of our marketing campaigns when I worked at advertising agencies and when I worked at Wells Fargo, because if you wait until after the fact to do it, you will find out that you didn't capture the data you needed. So it's super important to do this. When you are putting together your first marketing campaigns and you're putting together projected results, you're not going to know. You're just going to put together your best guesses. That's all you can do. So don't stress out too much of it. We can look at industry numbers, but it is going to be wildly different. And you can look at what other photographers are getting, but you're not in the same market as them. You're not going to have the same niche audiences of them. They're going to have different strengths and weaknesses as you. This is why we really, as marketing consultants and coaches, we really caution you against trying to use numbers from somebody else. It's a good place as a starting point. I mean, what we used to always say was, if you're going after new customers, put together a 2% response rate. Nowadays, I'd put even lower. I'd put like 0.5%, because with social media and so much marketing going on, we're inundated like never before. I think 0.5% response when you're going after people who've never heard of you before is much more reasonable. And then figure out how you're going to track. Like, how am I going to know if this was a success? First of all, you have to answer the question, how will I know if this was a success? And then that will tell you what you need to track. So that might, if you're going to do Facebook ads, that's going to be tracking how many people were exposed to your ad, how many people clicked on your landing page, which Facebook will probably give you that information. And then you're going to look at your web analytics. How many people actually landed on my web page? Because those numbers don't really match all the time. Stuff happens. There are glitches. People fall through. People change their mind. So the number that Facebook's going to give you of how many people clicked on it is going to be higher than your web analytics. It's going to tell you how many people landed on your landing page. And then on your landing page, on your web analytics, you're going to say, well, how many people then filled out the form and I captured their contact information? And then you can do a percentage there, right? You can say, of all the people who were exposed to it, 0.5% actually gave me their contact information. And of the people who landed on my page, let's say 10% filled out my contact information. That's all good information to have. And you're also going to want to ask for the sale too. Always ask for the sale, but expect that number to be lower. And then if your call to action is book, then you can track that, how many people actually booked. But all this information you want to start capturing. And then over the years, you use that information to make better decisions. And you use that information to see if I tweak this in my campaign, if I tweak this, do my numbers go up? That's how you make improvements and get better and better in your marketing, as opposed to, I'm going to try this campaign. Oh, The phone didn't ring, therefore it didn't work. Well, yes, I've got some people who signed up for things, but I don't know how many of them came in because of my campaign, that specific campaign. I just know in general, a lot of people filled this out. So you're not tying it to your marketing campaigns. Okay, moving on. This
Well, so
going back to,
I just
yeah.
want to interject a moment here. So, what I'm hearing, which is a great concept, a hedgehog concept, if you will, is that when building a marketing plan and looking at response rates, there's no substitution for actual experience to develop your own internal numbers, and that it's not a good idea to project based upon somebody else's success, but rather set some pretty realistic goals. Maybe set a lower goal initially, such as 0.5% response rate for new lead generation, and then really maybe set goals of, okay, I'm going to see what happens percentage wise. How many do I convert from a lead to a customer out of the first 100 leads I generate, and start to develop some data dashboards that start to develop our own internal numbers. Because once we get this whole system started, that's when we're going to be able to make minor modifications, and we will start to gain a better understanding how to do a better job marketing ourselves to our customers.
Absolutely. And you use that information to also decide, should I even be doing this marketing campaign in the first place? Because when you take your projected results, you're going to look at how much am I going to spend? What kind of response rate am I going to get? And if I divide that into how much I spent, how much did it cost for me to bring in this new lead? And that's another presentation to sort of figure out how much am I willing to bring in for a new lead? And so you have sort of a benchmark to hold this up against. But when you're first starting out and you've never done a Facebook promotion before, you're just not going to have those numbers. So I think it's important to put in really low rates and then learn how to get better at targeting within all of Facebook's targeting capabilities, get better at messaging, and then you're going to start to see response rates maybe closer to a 2%, maybe even closer to a 10%. That's pretty big when you're going after people who have never heard of you before. But also, there are remarketing campaigns. So you can choose to only select people who've seen your prior ads before. So it's not the very first time they're hearing about you. They've seen your ad before. Then it becomes a little bit easier, because the more times somebody hears about you, the more they start to be comfortable with you. It just moves you closer to a trust factor. Trust is so difficult to do in an online environment, and we have to do it incrementally. It's not as easy, because the old-fashioned way is you did it in person, you went and did sales calls, so that you just leapfrogged ahead on that trust factor. We're doing it online, which is just so much more easy and so much more accessible, but getting to that point of there's a higher trust level, it happens incrementally.
Well, and the other
That's
thing
the
I'm
difference.
thinking about, and forgive me, but we do these presentations completely unscripted, and we have this conversation, and um, what I love about these conversations is I immediately start getting some insights of, oh, I could try this a little differently. And what I'm getting right now is this idea of, when we look at expected results or projected results, if we can break down what are all the steps of the call to action, which you talked about at length in the purchase journey, and if we start building some metrics to measure each of those call to actions, what we should see is that percentage get higher and higher the further along the purchase journey a prospect is. So we might have a 0.5% to get a lead generated, to get that permission to start a sequence of sales letters that have a call to action that goes to the next segment. So maybe the next call to action is to schedule a consultation. I might try to get that up to a 10%. And then if I actually get the consultation, I might get a 50% conversion rate at that point. So the more we build the relationship, the further along, and the more points that we build into our marketing plan for points of contact, we are building that trust factor, and we're going to increase our conversion rate towards the end of that process.
100%. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's going to be a whole nother presentation.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. But that's where we're going. And that all those data points help you to figure out how to improve things at each of those steps. Lots of data points. It's not one data point, which I think some people think is, did the campaign give me sales? There's lots of data points along the way, and you're only going to be able to know those if you put in advance the mechanisms to be able to track those data points. And you will learn along the way, like, oh, I should have tracked this. I wish I'd done that. That's okay. That's how we learn. That's how we get better. And next time you'll put that data point in as well. Okay, so again, in the buyer's journey, then there's this section of convincing all those leads to purchase. And so what are all the different marketing tactics you're going to use, and how are you going to encourage them to book that session? Maybe one of those marketing campaigns is going to be, I'm going to send out a monthly emails newsletter and ask them to book their session. Again, at this point, I'm going to think of, what is their current perception? It's a little bit different now. Now they've heard of me. And what do I want their desired customer perception to be once they receive that monthly email newsletter? Again, what are my projected results, and how am I going to track those results? So the next section is, we went from awareness to convincing leads to purchase. The next section in the buyer's journey is the purchase experience and delivery process. What will you do to make sure this is a great experience? What's their current perception? What's the desired perception? This current perception, right? At this point, you've made some promises of what they expect their experience to be. So hopefully that your current customer perception should be, well, this is what they said I'm going to expect. This is what I think this is going to be. Now, how are you going to have that desired customer perception after they've experienced be even better than what you promised? How are you going to make that happen? Again, what are your projected results? How are you going to track those results? And then the last section in the buyer's journey is encouraging referrals and repeat business. What will you do to make sure that happens, and how will you encourage them to take action? Maybe this is a different monthly email newsletter, where you're going to ask them to book another session and forward to a friend. This is when your email marketing list gets big enough that you can start to section them out. Again, that goes back to, the more you can be specific to them, the more effective your marketing will be. So how you talk to somebody who has never purchased from you before, maybe that newsletter is more about what they can expect, and here are other happy people that have experienced you and what came of that. But the people who have already experienced you, maybe that's going to be a little bit of that, but maybe it's going to be more focused on, here are some other products and services I offer that you might not know about. We want to make sure that we're introducing other things. Or here are some reasons you have this picture of your family when your kids were in elementary school. What are some of the milestones that you want to do? So you're trying to put in their minds of key milestones of when they need to rebook with you, right? So it's slightly different. It's kind of like, oh yeah, you're right. So maybe, if you're the person who wants to take somebody from newborn all the way, or from engagement to wedding to newborn to the kids, you've got that whole process, but your leads are going to be marketing to engagement and wedding. But now now that they've become a customer, now you're going to start giving them these other milestones and reasons to rebook. Again, what are your projected results and how are you going to track those results? The sixth part of your plan per target audience is you're then all those different campaigns that you did and you put together your projected results, you're going to total those all up to make sure they then match up to your overall goal for this target audience. And then you're going to go, if it doesn't match up, if it's not enough, you can then think of, well, how can I make the campaigns that I'm doing now better reach those goals? If I'm going to do Facebook ads, well, maybe I need to spend more. Maybe I need to increase my geographical audience, or maybe I need to, there's all those different levers that you can pull within figuring out who your audience is. Or maybe you need to add on another campaign, doing something totally different. But you want to make sure that your plans are going to meet your goals. And then you're going to put together a project schedule for each of those campaigns. And so here is a project schedule that I did for this Emory campaign, and it was 2 pages long. And I would talk about each action, and then I would have the date it was supposed to happen, and then I put a little thing here of what date it actually happened on. And if something fell off too far off the schedule, then I'd put together a new schedule. But this was to make sure that we were staying on track. But the most important thing for us as solopreneurs is it helps us to figure out when we need to start working on that campaign. Because it's not too uncommon to say, I'm going to start working on those holiday promotions, and I'm going to work on them starting in September, and then you just discover that wasn't
It's
soon
December
enough.
15th, and we forgot to launch our Christmas promotion.
Well, and if you think you can start it in September, you may not be able to get that campaign in time. I mean, some campaigns can, but it's not uncommon for businesses to start their plans for December and July. That's how. But if you put together your project schedule, you know when you need to start. And then you can put that tickler reminder on your overall calendar of, oh, I need to start working on that. And then you learn once again, how much time did it take me to do that? You keep those notes for next year. And you can decide I need to start earlier. Or now that I've already developed the marketing pieces, I'm just tweaking my marketing messages. I'm just tweaking a few things. I don't need to start as early now. I can do it faster.
Well, I'm just going to show an example of that. I've known many photographers that they stop marketing when they get busy because they haven't put a schedule and they haven't kept consistent. So they end up going through this feast and famine cycle that we think, and this goes back to this mindset of being self-employed versus a business owner. The self-employed person tends to think, okay, I'm busy, I don't need marketing. And then all of a sudden they lose. I remember one photographer had one key client that produced, a tremendous amount of income, didn't bother continuing to market for new customers because it was always busy. I don't need this, don't need this. All of a sudden that company decided to bring all their photography services in-house and no longer hired freelance contractors. That photographer had to reinvent themselves completely because they hadn't kept a sustained marketing plan in place. And I think it's a good idea to set a goal of acquiring 20% new customers every year, even if you've got a solid referral repeat business, because you want to account for the fact that you're going to have people move out of your geographic area. You're going to have people pass away. You're going to have customers that, frankly, the creative energy dissipates over time. The newness of the projects and maybe the newness and creativity on your part, I'm thinking more in terms of commercial photographer, you get sedentary and you don't get that juice flowing. Quite often, companies will do ad agency reviews because they want a fresh perspective. So there's all kinds of reasons why you're going to need to run a sustained marketing plan to acquire new customers, even if things are going really well for you right now.
Yes, and I think that there is a fear that if I'm super busy and I continue to keep marketing, I'm what am I going to do with all these inquiries coming in? So have a plan for that, because you don't want that fear to hold you back. That's the fear of success. When people talk about how can anyone fear success, that's one of those things that holds us back. Have a plan. Your plan can be maybe a combination of having a waiting list. It can be booking people farther out. It can be finding other photographers in your area that you might have. Okay, if I get these types of businesses, I'm going to farm them out. Maybe you want to just hand it over, and because you're planning on phasing that out, or maybe it's going to stay within your brand, but you're going to send that photographer as more of a freelancer or a contractor under your name. Have a plan so that you don't worry about more business coming in than you can handle during those times where things are going really well.
Although I happen to think a restaurant that makes you wait 6 months for a table tends to be pretty highly sought after.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a
Yeah.
great thing. Okay, so I wanted to then just sort of give you an example of this Emory Worldwide campaign. So again, we would put together these, and sometimes we call them creative briefs or communication briefs, but these were specific to a marketing campaign. And it was intended to make sure that the people working on the creative were keeping their focus on what they should be talking about, who they were talking to, and putting together a really great campaign. And what are the different components of it? So I want to go back to showing what came of that campaign with that customer I had in 1997 with Emory Worldwide. And just sort of to recap, we would put together these, this is 5 pages long, but with the project schedule, it's 7 pages long. It's a lot of detailed information to make sure that we truly understood who were we talking to, what are the issues they're trying to solve, what did we want this one specific marketing campaign to solve, what did we want, what action we wanted them to take, how were we going to do this schedule wise, and what results do we want to get. All that detailed information means that we have lots of data points to then figure out what the results were. And here are the actual direct mail pieces that came out of it. There were even, I keep covering up the microphone there, but there were even more pieces that came out of it. These are some of the ones that I saved. We called these the interesting shipment, and these were very story-based in 1997. Okay, the idea of story brand has been around for a long time. So this one says, if I can read it, sleek, streamlined, aerodynamically designed. It can go from 0 to 45 miles per hour in just 2 seconds. Remember, this is going to people who work at companies who ship stuff. But when it really needs to get there fast, Emory Worldwide has some quick moves of its own. And we have a cheetah. And then we get into the story. So all this in the middle was a story. And it talks about a specific shipment, and we highlighted the different products and services that were used to make it happen. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but let me just kind of tell you a little bit about it. So there was a cheetah named Maggie and her family of 3 cubs, and she needed a trip from a wildlife center in Texas to a new home in the Living Desert Wildlife and Botanical Park in California. So they called Emory Worldwide because they knew Emory Worldwide specialized in unique shipments and creating custom containers for a shipment. You know, they're completely custom. They're not needed for anything else. So this is Maggie, and she's a mom, and she's got 3 cubs. and she needs to be shipped 1,000 miles. And it's basically the story of what this company went through to make sure that she was safe, her cubs were safe, they were able to acclimate to their new environment properly. And then, so there's the story. Here's more information about those specific services that were used. And then here was a direct response card that basically said, if you do so many shipments within a certain time period, we're going to send you this great little multi-tool. And how did we track it? Well, there's a tiny, you probably can't see it, but there's a tiny little code there.
Oh, code, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a little code there because we would take these mailers. There's the mailing part where the sticker gets put on here. And we would segment the audience that would get these. We would segment them by different industries. We would segment them by different titles. We would segment them by how big or small the company was. So even within this one campaign, we'd probably have 10 different segments in it. And so we'd have different codes. So we had lots of data points. I'm not suggesting.
So basically every marketing piece you design has its own SKU code so that you can then track the effectiveness of it.
You know, online you can do that with different landing pages.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the same exact landing page and just duplicate it.
Yeah.
And then you can then track how many people go to those different landing pages. And then that will, if you're going to segment your audience, that will give you that information. Codes are helpful too, but you just got to figure out what's going to work. This one was, so it's the same exact campaign. We did this on a quarterly basis. This was a shipment that we did for NASA. I didn't do it, but we talked about the unique challenges that they had to do. We had our call to action here, and then we had our, we gave them a great space pen that you could write upside down with. Another one was shipping this amazing cool car that was going to a car show, and how it needed to be kept under wraps and super top secret. And again, we had our call to action. I think this was a map measurer back when we used to use maps, and you could roll this across the map.
Nice.
And then our call to action. This time it was a shipment that the power had gone out, and they had to hike that shipment up a bunch of stairs so that they could, and the shipment was to be able to get the power back on.
Nice.
So those were the majority of that, but.
So I have an important question to ask.
Yes.
I'm just channeling what our audience might be thinking.
Yes, thank you.
So a company like Emory has thousands of employees, thousands of locations. Is this really applicable to the solo entrepreneur?
Right. And so the concepts are applicable, just how you execute it and how many different segmentations you do is going to be a lot smaller. And the idea, this may be a direct mail piece, but that doesn't mean you have to do it as a direct mail piece. It could be a banner ad on social media. It could be your email newsletter that you're sending to your leads. So I should go back. This was sent to existing customers in this particular campaign. So the goal of this campaign was to get past customers to buy again. It was to stay top of mind, remind them, and to continue to sell on specific points so that you can't tell the whole story of your business in one ad. Certainly not one little tiny little banner ad on Facebook. So you do it incrementally. You figure out what is that key piece that they need to know to bring them in. And once they become a customer, then you start to tell them more about what you do. Your website's going to tell all sorts of great information. Your customers are not going to read that whole thing, and they're not going to remember everything on there. So repetition's important. So
I want to get back to the original question, which is, if we apply these concepts that big corporations and companies with large advertising budgets and campaigns and people, if we apply those concepts, they will work for small businesses too. And in fact, I would say that this is the way small businesses grow, because these are time-tested, proven strategies for growing a business.
Yes, thank you for bringing it back to that. And actually, the marketing class that I teach is completely based on that principle, where it's about here are the big, here's what big companies are doing that have loads of marketing dollars. Uh, you, and here are the concepts that they use that you can use in your marketing with your small dollars. But it's ideas and concepts and strategies that don't necessarily need to cost a lot. And
So really what we're talking about is taking key concepts and bringing them down to scale to work with small businesses and help them grow. And as you grow, your marketing and advertising will grow with it.
right. So what we talked about before, where you need to figure out what your goals are, then you figure out all your different campaigns that are going to meet those goals. You're going to put tracking mechanisms. You're going to make sure, let me go back. You're going to make sure there's always a call to action, that you know what that next step is and that you're always moving them toward that next step. And then you're going to put tracking mechanisms in place to make sure that you are actually doing it. That's all these things with these big budgets do. It's all about making sure that they are putting all those pieces in place. But we do it for far less money. We go through the awareness stage through networking locally, through search engine optimization, through putting out press releases, to putting out ads on social media. And then we gather leads and we put together inexpensive or even free email marketing campaigns that move them along the consideration path. And then we make sure that we're tracking that. And then we're providing them the great customer experience. All these big corporate concepts are what we are doing and what we should be doing in our marketing campaign. And for the most part, what I want people to walk away with understanding is that all those articles out there who are telling you that marketing is easy and that you just have to find that one tactic that's going to work for you is not the full, true, entire story. You need to keep learning about marketing, and you need to understand how it works. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to do it, but it needs to be part of your everyday business life. You need to be working on it, whether it's 15 minutes, 2 hours, or an entire day, but every day you are doing something on your marketing.
So I'm going to summarize everything
Okay, thank
in
you.
2 words. And in fact, I'm making myself a sign to put above my desk, and that is be consistent. Be consistent in your messaging, be consistent in your product, be consistent in your scheduling of marketing activities and business activities, and be consistent enough that people will miss you if you're not there. That you need to become a part of people's lives in a meaningful way. And one of the ways we do that is through marketing and staying in touch with our existing customers as well as our prospects, and to do it on a consistent enough basis that people will notice if you're not there.
Absolutely. And what you're reminding me about how it's even more important right now during COVID-19. It's super important to not be dark right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, right now people are already seeing that people are itching to spend some money and having a reason and having an activity they can do that is um, physically distanced, which you can do in many photography situations. They want to spend the money, but even if you're not ready to open or you're not getting enough business right now, you need to stay top of mind so that when they are ready to do it, they immediately think of you and they're not thinking of somebody else. I mean, that's a statistic I don't remember. I want to say it's 30%, similar to the marketing plan number I said at the beginning. So it's important to be marketing during economic downtimes. That's proven that if you market during the downtime, you will bounce back significantly faster than those who aren't. Don't go dark.
Excellent. I've got one more question to ask, and it's taken us way back to the section on lead generation that we didn't really talk specifically, and maybe your response is going to be a whole nother episode. But how do we choose the channels of communication for our marketing messages? How do we choose between a Facebook, a TikTok, an Instagram, a direct mail? Well, trade shows are out of the way, off the table right now, so in person is a little more difficult right now. But how do we choose the marketing channels for our campaigns?
Yes. So that goes back to defining your target audience in detail. The reason to do that is so that you know where to find these people and you know what to say to them. I've done target audience descriptions that are a page long. There are target audience descriptions that are 2 pages long. I mean, so that's what you want to be working toward. And you just put together your best information right now. But every time you meet with a client, sit down and think about your favorite clients. What is consistent about them? And what are they doing when they're not being photographed by you? So if you're doing families, maybe there are certain community clubs that they're involved in your local area. Maybe there's golf clubs. Maybe there's gym places, the high-end ones that are in your geographical area, whether that's in your town or whether that's 2 hours away. Are there certain charity foundations that they're actively involved in? I mean, there are social charity groups that meet on a regular basis. They're kind of these inner circles that you just aren't a part
So
of unless you know
networking is
about
a
them.
big part of that. Yeah.
There's one in my community. Actually, they stopped by yesterday to pass out homemade cookies to
No.
say we really miss everybody and we haven't been doing our social gathering. But these are professionals that are donating thousands of dollars to this local community foundation, and it's by invitation only. And there's only 200 people in it. What an exclusive group.
Mhm.
And you don't always know about these, so you have to be hunting for these. If you're business to business, one of the things that I find out is that, so my target audience tend to be female. They are marketing directors of their city office out here. I could stop with that target audience right there. I could maybe go into, okay, they work in certain industries. I could say, well, maybe I would join the Chamber of Commerce in their city. But I could, you can go really deep into this, and it's not something you're going to know off the bat. It comes with continual study of your target audience and always adding. Put time in your calendar. Once a quarter, I'm going to revisit my target audience and I'm going to see what else I can add to it. But I can certainly look into industry-specific marketing organizations. There are marketing organizations just for people in the legal industry. There are marketing organizations just in the construction industry, and they are national and they have city chapters. I mean, you can market your business for the rest of your life and you will never find every single opportunity of where to find them. That's how deep and vast it can go. So have that mentality of abundance, that they're out there. I just need to keep mining for it, as opposed to, I don't know where to find these people. It's impossible. Does that help?
How do you choose between Facebook and Instagram?
It depends on your audience. If you then know
Or
your
LinkedIn?
audience,
Yeah.
if you know your audience tends to be on TikTok and they don't like Facebook, then you need to know that you need to be on TikTok. If you know that because you've gotten to know your audience so well that they don't ever go to that public golf course, they only go to that private one, or they don't go to the dentist in town. Everyone just loves this dentist that's in the next town over, and that becomes a marketing partner for you. I mean, there's so many nuanced different things, but you write it all out. So you write it out, and then you use that document when you're brainstorming for your marketing campaigns.
So that is going to lead up to a future episode where we are going to talk about specifically networking and strategic partnerships. And what we're really talking about is the category of brand affiliated marketing, where you have a public relationship with people and organizations that then other people recognize the value of that organization that you belong to, and you gain some credibility and trust factors, proof points that enhance your overall marketing strategy. But that we'll save for a whole nother presentation, because like you said, marketing is not a one-day wonder. It's a ongoing process, and we will have multiple episodes coming up that deal with different facets of marketing.
Absolutely.
And again, I think about the fact that just in the conversation, I've written down some things I want to put into place on my own. Yeah. So thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome.
All right. Thank you for joining us today on The Morning Hedgehog, and we will look for you next time. Check out our show notes on the morninghedgehog.com website, as well as drop us a line, leave a comment, and we would love to hear from you. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Hedgehog podcast. For show notes or to submit a question or comment, please visit www.themorninghedgehog.com.